Hello everyone, welcome to this week's video from the Purple Penny. My name's Mark. I own and run the Purple Penny along with my wife Catherine. The Purple Penny being a small family owned and run coin and banknote dealer in the northern suburbs of Adelaide in a place called Mawson Lakes. We primarily buy and sell coins, banknotes and collectibles. Buy collections over the counter. We're also authorised dealers for the Royal Australian Mint. The Royal Australian Mint are the producer of Australia's circulating coins. They also do produce non-circulating coins for collectors, and once every month or so they do have a release of products. And of course last Thursday, the 1st of May, we saw the 2025 uncirculated and proof sets. They were to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Australian Honours and Awards system. Every year the Royal Australian Mint releases a uncirculated set and a proof set. Used to be that they would be available in November or December the year before, but with COVID and everything the last few years they've sort of been around March, April, May that they would be available. We do have plenty of stock of the uncirculated and proof sets, so if you are in Adelaide and you don't want to pay postage, do feel free to drop in when we're open, and I'm sure we'll be able to help you out with that. We are open Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from 10 to 4 and Saturday 9 till 1. Now this is take 2 of this video. Last week we had some fairly significant technical problems and problems with the amount of patience that I had. In that I didn't have any, so I pulled the pin on last week's video and we're doing a rerun today, but I didn't get very far into it, so it's not really the end of the world. Before we get going, let's say a few hellos. Hello Sam, Gwen, Ray, Patrick, Damien, Catherine, who should be out there working but she's watching videos. Get back to work, you. Tanya and Angela and Peter. Thanks for joining in today, Peter. It's good to see you. I hope everyone had a fun election weekend. Catherine and I worked all weekend, so we didn't participate in any election activities. Now, what we're doing today is it was a question I got asked a few months ago, and I don't remember who asked it of me, but they asked me to cover the coins of the golden age of piracy. Now, I've chosen not to do that because the golden age of piracy is only about 40 or 50 years long, and the amount of coins available in that time weren't perhaps particularly interesting. And so I thought what I'd do is just look at pirate coins more generally, mainly the 2 best known ones and one less well known one, and explain, I guess, why they're historically interesting, what types of coins are available, the values of them, and then perhaps a little bit of a talk on what effect they've had on our currency today. Now let's just jump into the first slide here. So according to Wikipedia, now I know I shouldn't use Wikipedia as a source, but I can't help myself. The golden age of piracy was from 1650 to 1730. It was in 3 phases. The first phase was officially sanctioned piracy of the Spanish and the Portuguese, the Spanish holdings in the Caribbean and North America, and the Portuguese holdings in South America by French and English privateers, and they were officially commissioned by the governments of France and England, and basically France and England were at war with Spain, and these official privateers would raid Spanish and Portuguese ships, steal the loot off of those ships, and then ship it back to their respective countries as booty. Now the second phase, once that official phase of piracy had run out, was European pirates raiding the East India Company ships that were travelling from Europe to India. So those ships would make their way down the west coast of Africa, around Cape Horn at the bottom of Africa, back up the east coast of Africa, past the Red Sea, and then along the Indian and Arabian coast to India. The East India Company, from what I have read, was probably the biggest company that has ever existed. It certainly was a global power, even nationally. It was certainly a lot more powerful than a lot of countries. It had its own standing army, its own standing navy. So many European pirates saw that as fairly irresistible, and they would raid those ships and steal from those ships. Now, the third phase was conducted by English sailors who were unemployed after another English war with Spain, and they thought they would fill their coffers by heading to the Caribbean and raiding French ships and taking over, not French ships, Spanish ships, taking over Spanish colonies and so on and so forth. And if you've ever seen the TV show, I think it's called Black Flags, that was that period where we had English sailors acquiring their own ships and heading to the Caribbean and raiding French and English ships in the Caribbean. So Black Flags is a great show. If you ever want to watch a pirate show, well worth watching. Now, the three best known pirate coins are doubloons, pieces of 8, and probably less well known is the black dog. A doubloon is generally a gold coin, a piece of 8 is generally a silver coin, and a black dog is generally a very low percentage silver coin, mostly copper, but does have a small percentage of silver in it. So doubloons, the name is derived from the Spanish word for double, or doblon, or 2 escudo. An escudo was 16 reals, so a real was a Spanish measure of currency. It just stands for royals. The Spanish silver dollar was 8 reals, so an escudo was 2 8 real coins, or $2. Escudo just means shield, and that's because the initial designs of the escudo had the Spanish coat of arms on the reverse, which looks like a shield. So a doubloon was 2 escudos. It was worth 32 reals, or 4 Spanish dollars. And escudos were available in various fractions: half escudo, full escudo, 2 escudo, 4 escudo, and 8 escudo. Generally, they were struck from about 22 karat gold, which is about 91.6% pure gold, and about 3.1 grams per escudo. Now, interestingly, the escudo and gold coins like it were an international currency, and of course they were Australian proclamation coins. This here is a later escudo. This is a Spanish 8 escudos, which is 27 grams of 22 karat gold, so just over 3/4 of an ounce of gold. This one was graded by NGC as AU details. I believe it's had a spot removed from it, and it sold just a couple of weeks ago for about US $2,400. Now, interestingly, US $2,400 is only barely above the gold value of this coin. So most 8 escudos like this are not particularly scarce, and if they have any sort of impairment and they're not a rare date, they really are only worth a bit more than the gold value, which is hard to believe, but there you go. So $2,400 US is only about $3,600 Australian, so it is barely more than the gold value. Now, the Spanish struck their coins in many different places in their colonies: Mexico, Peru, Bolivia, Colombia. So they did have mines and mints in many different places. This particular one was struck in Bogota in Colombia in 1796. The next one is, well, it's not a Spanish coin, it is a Portuguese coin. This is a 1747 4 escudos, 14.3 grams of 22 karat gold, so about 0.42 of an ounce of gold. This one was graded as AU details by NGC. I believe this one had filed edges. Why do gold coins have filed edges? Well, because if you weren't too scared about having your hands chopped off or being executed by the king, then you could file away at gold and silver coins and get yourself a little pile of gold dust and silver dust, and then pass those coins on and profit from that gold or silver dust on the side. Now, this particular one sold on 3rd of April for US $2,160. So that is a bit above the gold value, but not a huge amount above the gold value. Quite amazing that for $270 a 270-year-old coin, you can pick up something like this for perhaps only 30 or 40% above the gold value. This one was struck in Lisbon in Portugal, almost certainly from gold that was shipped from the New World back to Portugal. If you are interested, you can get online and do some reading about Portuguese and Spanish colonial gold ingots. They would cast their gold into long bars and stamp them with their purity and various assaying marks, and then they would go back to Europe and be struck into coins. So the next coin I want to talk about here is probably the most famous Spanish coin that there is. This is the piece of 8. So this is the silver 8 reals or 8 royals. Spanish silver dollars were struck from 1497 until 1820. Usually about 27 grams of 90% silver, or about 3/4 of an ounce of silver. They were struck as cobs from 1497 to 1732. Cobs were coins that were struck on slices of silver bars, and I've just got, we'll just go back to the big picture here. I've just got one here that I can share with you. This is a Spanish cob. So this is, you can see it's quite irregularly shaped, and that's because this was basically cut from a slice of silver that was, struck on a slice of silver that was cut from a long silver bar. So that is called a cob. But in 1732 they went to milled coins. So these were coins that were struck in a coin press, and they were struck with a pillar design from 1732 until 1773, and then with a portrait design from that point onwards. Now, what's really interesting about 8 reals is that these were effectively the US dollar of their day, and they still, many world coinages were derived from the standard that Spanish 8 reals had. For example, the US silver dollar still has similar size and composition to that. The Australian crowns produced in 1937 and 38 have the same composition as that. British commemorative crowns, which the Royal Mint still issues from time to time, have the same composition as that. So here we are 400 years later, and we're still feeling the effects of the pirate Spanish 8 reals. So this is a cob coin. This one happens to be a 2 reals. It is important to realise that 8 reals was not the only size. It was produced in fractions, such as the half real, the 1 real, 2 real, 4 real. This one here is a 2 real ex-shipwreck, 93% silver, struck in Potosi in Bolivia. And Potosi is right where the silver mine is, that most of the silver was generated for these coins. It's thought perhaps that the word cob comes from the Spanish phrase cabo de barra, and I do apologise for my offensive Spanish pronunciation there, but I don't speak Spanish. And cabo de barra supposedly means end of the bar. So slices of silver were cut off of a bar. They were then weighed, probably cut or filed to size, and then struck with dies. Probably whether it was a screw press or whether it was hammered is unclear, but very crude coins. Now, why would they do this? Because it just produces coins of known quantity and quality that can be used in commerce, as opposed to producing massive 100-pound silver bars, which are much harder to do anything with. So the next one here is a pillar dollar, and these were struck from 1732 to 1770. It's called a pillar dollar because on the left side there you can see the Pillars of Hercules. The Pillars of Hercules were legendary stone pillars that supposedly guarded the mouth of the Mediterranean Ocean, and if you pass through the Pillars of Hercules you are passing out into the wider world. Now, there are ribbons around that Pillar of Hercules, and it is thought that that S shape that those ribbons form are the origins of the dollar symbol, the S with the line through it. So again, here we go back to a coin that is 270 years old, and we are still using symbols that were derived from that. This particular one is a 1748 8 real, was struck in Mexico City. 27 grams of 90% silver. This one is graded NGC MS62, sold in March for US $5,000. Now you might be wondering why it sold for $5,000. It's because it's mint state, and 8 reals like this are, I won't say they're common, but they're not hard to find in circulated condition. But true uncirculated coins are rare indeed, and it's not unusual to see an uncirculated coin selling for 5 to 20 times as much as a circulated coin, and that's why this one sold for $5,000 US, which is a lot of money for a single coin. So those are pillar 8 reals. In 1770 they went to a portrait 8 real, and you can see there that it has a portrait of the King of Spain on there. That's why it's called a portrait 8 real. And we have the Spanish coat of arms with the pillars of Hercules on either side on the reverse there. So these are the most well-known Spanish silver dollars. This particular one dated from 1790, 27 grams of 90% silver, so again the same silver content. Grades PCGS MS61, and it sold in February this year for US $2,280. And it was struck in Lima in Peru. Again, Lima in Peru, there are many silver mines there, so these were struck close to the source of the silver that they were made from. Again, this one is quite valuable simply because of the condition of them. It's not unusual to see fine coins like this, graded fine, selling for less than $200, but as soon as they're mint state you'll be paying 20 or 30 times as much as that, because the mint state coins are incredibly hard to find. And the last one for today is probably one that most people haven't heard of. It's called a black dog. The black dog is a low value, face value coin struck from debased silver or copper. Usually they weigh about sort of 2 grams of copper, valued at 1.5p, because many of these coins had equivalent British values. This particular one is struck from 2 grams of 20% silver, which is called billion, graded by PCGS as VF35 and sold on the 18th of February last year for US $500. This particular one is counter-stamped Nevis, which is a British colony, and it's struck on a French Guiana 2 sou host coin. Now, why were they counter-stamped? Australia was not the only colony to have problems with small change. It happened in many other British colonies, and one way of getting around that problem is to buy in a quantity of coins from another country and then counter-stamp them with a particular mark, in this case the name of the colony, and then give them a value above their face value, because that way they are much less likely to leave the colony. So that's a black dog. Now, to me, these are the most interesting coins out of the 3 that I've shown you today, because these ones are quite a bit harder to find, and there are many more different types. I have one of these in my collection, not this particular type, but I have another one, and I think I have one 8 real. I have never had the money to be able to buy an 8 Escudo, even though I would love to. Right, I think that's it. I think we're done with pirate coins. Now I'll just make sure that I haven't missed anyone here. Hello Brett, hello Peter, hello Petra, hello Alan, hello Daryl, Darren, D, GD, Mike. Right, so that's it for today. We've got no other coin news for you at the moment. Nothing coming up from the Royal Australian Mint that we know about. Nothing that we know about, and we're not allowed to tell you either. We don't know what's coming up. If you do come into the shop here, just be aware that we've been incredibly busy with buying, and if you do have to wait for us, please just bear with us while we get on to you. We've got Jared in here most days helping us out, but sometimes Catherine and I get a bit swamped, and we just ask for everyone's patience. And I'd just like to pass on my thanks to everyone who's left us positive reviews over the last couple of weeks. If you'd watched our Facebook page, I think it was early last week, we did have a rather unfair review put in for us, which at the end of the day I kind of found a bit amusing, and I shared it with people on our Facebook page, and as a result of that we have got a lot of really wonderful reviews from our customers supporting us, and Catherine and I can only thank you. We can't thank you enough for the support that our customers give us. We do enjoy what we do here, and having wonderful customers makes it much more enjoyable, because that's what we rely on. There is a lot of grind that goes on here behind the scenes, and when we open up, it's always good to see familiar faces. And some people that are watching now know that they are those familiar faces. And Catherine and I we can't thank you enough. We really appreciate the lovely people that we get in here. So yeah, thank you for that. I should just share with you that unfair review has been removed. Now, I don't know if the person who placed the review removed it, or if Google took it upon themselves to remove it, but it has been removed, so whatever harm was done for that has gone. So thank you again, everyone, for your support. That's it for this week. If you've got anything you'd like me to talk about next week, please send me a message or give us a call, have a chat. I don't know when I'm going to start posting these things to YouTube again. I'm sort of very tight on for time at the moment, but if you are a YouTube person, please do try and watch this on Facebook when you get a chance. All right, that's it for this week. Thanks everyone for tuning in. It's been great video. I've really enjoyed doing this, and thank you everyone who's watched today. It's really appreciated. Bye for now.